Okay, now we're going to start with HD 60. I think this time around we're pretty fortunate because our two candidates happen to be pretty conservative guys. They're both, well, you'll hear them. It's going to be a tough decision. Anyway, we've got Steve Collins and Jim Wilson. And the first one is for Steve to start with.
Okay.
You are only allowed to bring up a limited number of bills. What would your first two be?
Honestly, that's one of those things that I don't want to pass five or bring up 5 bills. You're allowed 5 bills every session. I don't want 5 bills. We have enough laws on the books. If it's something that is rescinding a law, then that's something that I might look at. But there are it's something that I would need input from the citizens. I had somebody at one of the county assemblies come up to me and say, okay, so what are you going to do when you get to Denver? Well, my response to that was, what I want to do is not important. What do you want me to do when I get to Denver? One thing that is kind of sticking in my hide a little bit today, because it just hit the news, in case you haven't heard, Metro State College in Denver has just voted to offer a lower tuition rate for illegal immigrants. Obviously, in my mind, if the college can afford to lower tuition rates for someone, they're not hurting for money. So maybe we can find some state funds that they don't need because they're lowering tuition rates. So that is something that I would look into. It's something that I would have to talk with the other legislators that have been there for a while. It's a crazy process down there. I don't claim to have all the answers right up front, but my big thing is I would want to get the input from you, the voters, as to what you want done, not what I want done. Does that make sense to people? So that's it. Okay.
I can honestly say I would have no clue as to what I would file as my first and second choices, because the problem that we have, and my opponent alluded to that, is that every legislator has the right to edit or to author 5 bills. The problem with that is, folks, bills become laws. And once they become laws, then we have an awfully hard time even trying to rescind any of those or make any corrections to them. So as far as my initiative, I know what our needs are, and I'm learning what our needs are here in HD 60. I'm not sure that that constitutes the need for a law. It constitutes the need for representation and to get other people on board with us under that golden dome to where we become a unified group of 4 counties instead of 4 counties that have individual voices that don't have the power of the unity, and see exactly where we are there. So in terms of any bills, I have no agenda on that whatsoever. But I can tell you one thing, and I've talked to some people up there, if I'm looking at bills, it may be to do away with some of those laws that we have. Thank you.
Now you're really messing with me. He said that. Now, it's your turn. In the past, the governor's budget has put off making payments for some programs until the next fiscal year in order to balance the current budget, such as Medicare. How would you propose to correct this?
Budgeting is one of my big issues. One of the things that I found as I researched the legislators under the Golden Dome is that very few of them have had experience working with public tax dollars before they go there. So it's just kind of a happy dance when you've got all this money and you can do whatever you want to do with it. But having been in the public school system where we were flat busted and had to be a good steward of public tax dollars, that's very dear to my heart. I do not understand why we cannot balance the budget at the state level when you have to do it in your household. I had to do it as a school district. Strangely enough, school districts cannot have a deficit budget, so you have to balance the budget. That means you have to cut. The government doesn't have to. Therefore, we can push things forward, as you're saying, to where we can balance the budget. One of my initiatives will definitely be, let's see why we can't balance the budget at the state level. Understanding, folks, when we talk about living within our means, your definition of means and my definition of means may be different. And I don't mean that as your representative, I just mean personally. So when you start tightening the belt, it gets us all. So it's not a happy time when you start cutting budgets and living within your means. So it'll be a really tough time in the state of Colorado to balance that budget, but it's a happy day when you can say, we did finish the year in the black.
Well, actually, if I'm not mistaken, the state of Colorado does have a balanced budget requirement statutorily, but they play all sorts of games like postponing payments to future years, so it solves the current year, but it shifts everything down the line. I would like to look at the entire budgeting process in the state of Colorado and see if we can fix that process, because right now we use this baseline budgeting where your budget for next year is based on this year's budget plus a certain amount. And if you're supposed to go up 10% and you only go up 8%, they call that a cut. Well, if you're going up 8%, to me, that is not a cut. I would like to see us go to more of a model where each year, each department, or if we have to switch it to a 2-year process, each department goes through and justifies every expense rather than these automatic increases. And we need to stop the games, the number games that the state government plays, where they shift the expenses down the line so that they can budget or balance the current year's budget, but increases the problem once they get out of office.
Understand the other side of this too, folks, and you'll hear me use this term a lot, that there's always a hidden agenda. There's always something that drives this. The reason why the state does have to figure out ways that it can push those things forward is the federal government gives us unfunded mandates. And when you have that issue going on, then you've got the mandate that you have to fund it, but you don't have the dollars to fund it. So that does place the state in a bind. My approach is recognize that and say, folks, here's what we've got to cut to balance the budget. Because as my opponent said, when you shove it forward, you're just putting it on the next ring. Thanks.
Well, this one, you already took part of the question. Metropolitan State College of Denver just cut tuition for illegal immigrant students by 58%. What actions should the state legislature take?
Well, like I said, I've already said, obviously if they can afford lower tuitions, then we need to look at their state budget, because if they've got too much money coming in where they can afford to lower tuition, that's a problem. My issue with offering in-state tuition to the children of illegal immigrants is the key phrase, illegal. When they graduate, they're still going to be here illegally. So if they want to get a job, that's the hidden agenda that Jim talks about, is if they want to get a job, there are 2 choices. Either they continue to flaunt our laws and work here illegally, or they take the subsidized education that we've given them, go back to their home country and build a brand new life there. Either way, we lose. It makes no sense to me. You don't want to punish the children for the crime of the parents, but the analogy that I always draw is, if somebody robbed a bank and they eluded capture up until they were on their deathbed, and they confess on their deathbed, they did it. We wouldn't put their kids in jail for the crime, but we also would not allow those children to inherit the money that they stole, right? So you don't punish the kids for the crime of the parents, but you don't allow them to benefit from the crime of the parents either.
I'd like to check the security of the questions, if he already knows how to answer those. My opponent and I differ on a couple of things with the illegal immigrant thing, and it's not that they are giving a break to them. I totally disagree with that. But in our system, folks, figure it out. There is an agenda going on. Because children of illegal immigrants, if they are here for 6 months, qualify for in-state tuition. They are a resident after that 6 months' time, the same way my daughter qualified for that. If they are born here in the United States, guess what? They're automatically a citizen. So within 6 months they can qualify. What's the agenda? I've got a sneaking suspicion it might be how those illegal immigrants might vote. Just a suspicion thought. The whole underlying agenda is to turn Colorado again to Obama.
Well, and that is definitely the case where there is a hidden agenda there, but the hidden agenda also that I see is amnesty. And this is a way, I'm already hearing it in this argument, well, we've invested so much money in their K through 12 education, we should continue to invest money in their or graduate education, or secondary school education. And so once we start subsidizing their college, the next step is, oh, well, we've subsidized their education, now we need to grant them citizenship. So that's the hidden agenda that we need to watch for. Jim's turn.
That's me. I don't know what the question's going to be.
Okay.
I'll tell you.
What is your position on PILT? And what do you think needs to be done to ensure small counties get their fair share of PILT funds? And for those of you that don't know PILT, it's payment in lieu of taxes. It comes from the state government.
That's what I was going to explain, because most people don't know what the PILT stands for. That means that counties such as ours in HD 60, because we have so many Bureau of Land Management, National Forest, whatever acres that are public acres, the government pays in lieu of the taxes. If we were, for example, in eastern Colorado, where every section was taxed, then you generate tax dollars. So the PILT money is extremely, extremely important for HD 60. And that money appears to some politicians that that's just money that's being paid for nothing. Why should we pay money on Bureau of Land Management or National Forest? Makes a good argument for those who don't have those forests in their county. For those of us that do, we need those tax dollars in order to operate our county governments and to be able to utilize those funds. In order to ensure that those keep coming, you've got to be, for lack of a better term, a loudmouth and a little bit in your face that those are things that we need and to protect those for our district. That's one of the key things as we look at a representative for HD 60 is that we have our needs and we have got to have someone under that golden dome who can stand up and defend what our needs are. Our needs make no sense to the Front Range, folks. I hate to say that. It makes no sense. When you talk about agriculture, water, PILT funds, it makes no sense to them. We've got to have that advocate in the golden dome.